Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's video on revision techniques looking at SLOP, which stands for Shared Loads of Practice. What the idea of SLOP is practicing two types of knowledge, procedural and declarative knowledge, in order to try and get the best out of your revision strategies. So procedural knowledge is the knowledge of processes. It's starting somewhere and learning and following the learning series and the series of steps to generate the correct solution afterwards. The main examples of this are science and calculations that we find in maths as well. The other type of knowledge that we're going to look at today is declarative knowledge, which is the knowledge of facts. This also applies to science, but it's commonly seen in geography and history as well. What we can start to understand with these two different types of knowledge is how they relate to the content that we're trying to revise and become experts in. We all know that when we're trying to become an expert at something, what we need to be able to do is practice it again and again. So to become an expert, we need to practice. And the same stands for doing that with revision techniques as well. Whenever you're trying to learn something, you need to become familiar with the topic inside and out. So we need to be able to practice it and make sure we know each aspect of the topic. As a novice learner, which we are when we're revising, we need a large amount of guidance and lots of examples to try and understand how a concept relates to it. When we're practicing it, you do this in big chunks in line with other revision strategies as well to make sure that we're learning the best that we can. When we become more familiar with the topic and we become more proficient in it, the practice is going to be more effective if it's spaced out into regular, smaller chunks. We know that the best way isn't just to chunk this the night before the exam, and it's better to do this over time and in your own time as well. We know that in our day-to-day lives, to become an expert at something, we need to practice. If you're a musician, you need to be practicing your scales, chords, and progressions. Playing tennis, you need to be practicing your serving, receiving, and your returning. And if you're playing a rugby, you need to be practicing your techniques for your passing and your dribbling as well. These aren't something that you can just get better at overnight, and you need to be practicing over time to try to do that. When we're revising, we use SLOP, Shared Loads of Revision Practice, to make sure that we're really, really familiar with the concept. Where we see this commonly in school is using equations in maths, in science, where we can use calculations as well as practicing this declarative factual knowledge. In history, we've got a strong recall of facts, and in geography, we've got a large recapping of processes as well. What we can see on the screen here now is an example of some SLOP questions for biology for the cells topic. If we look at some of the questions that are there, we can see that they're all asking very, very similar things, but just worded slightly differently. This is so that you, as a learner, can become familiar with the concept and, like I said before, start to know it inside and out. This way, that when you're presented with an unfamiliar scenario or situation, you're able to use the practice that you've had before and know that you're familiar with the concept that the topic's talking about. So, what we've looked at in this revision techniques video is how we can use SLOP, Shared Loads of Revision Practice, to make sure that we're practicing the knowledge that we're revising in order to move towards becoming an expert learner.